hey, producer. Somehow, when I wasn't home, he used my couch for the photo shoot, and can't say that I'm super thrilled about it. Yeah,
it's a little bit cheesy, but whatever. So
what's going on?
So there we go.
So why don't these 18-year-olds?
Which war did he die in? Her husband died in every war.
Yeah, they're sexy specs. I've heard people refer to them in just horrible ways. Birth control glasses, things like that.
Yeah, are you able to give me a call back?
Evening would be great.
Oh yeah!
Because I want the
yeah! Oh!
Oh! I'm sorry, you have to deal with that. So.
Oh my God!
We're actually doing a live podcast
Big
right now.
Daddy!
It's gonna be a mess. It's gonna. We're gonna need the cleanup crew. We're gonna need aftermath.
Look at infant after.
I'm allergic to this mask.
He has a severe latex allergy.
He does have a latex allergy.
Oh my God, that makes it even better.
So your face is going to be all squatchy. Only half a man.
Yeah, it's like you're stuck in a limbo, half-assed all the time.
Even better, I'm like,
for the sake of our new. Whoa. Are we actually on here now?
I think we are.
Damn, we're
Dude,
entertaining, dude.
That actually had me going. That's the first time that we have seen that. That was a special surprise by the UPP.
I made that 10 minutes before the show, and I was like
bad.
crying, laughing. That was the first time I watched it all together. I was just hoping it looks good.
I forgot about some of that stuff. Makes me laugh, man. I forgot that I cannot remember who called you in the middle of the podcast and you answered.
I don't remember either.
And I did this the homemade sex tape noises. That's pretty. I was dying. I was like, oh my God, I don't even remember that. I probably had a few bourbons before I did that. I don't know.
Oh, I'm sure we both had our share of that. But.
Welcome to the Off the Cuff podcast, guys. If you are if you watch that intro and you remember those things, man, we love you because you have hung through a lot of changes and a lot of iterations, the ups and downs of the Off the Cuff podcast. Thank you so much. We're back. I think we're back, and this is like episode 7 or 8 or something like that. What are we on here, Elijah? I don't remember.
This should be episode 8.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Little almost to a dozen episodes now again, and
for like the 8th time.
I think we've kind of just decided that we're just going to be us, right? So what we've been trying to figure out, what are we going to do with this thing, right? I have this Mike the Cop YouTube channel that I put no content on whatsoever because screw that guy. Yeah. This Mike the Cop guy. I've put him to death. He died in the line of social media duty. He was brutally taken from us. But we have the show and we love hanging out together on Wednesday nights. So we would do it in person if Dave had listened to me and moved by my house instead of 2 hours away. We're both still in the great state of Michigan, though, I guess. So we got that going for us. But anyway, Off the Cuff, 2 former cops and their illegitimate son. We're not sure who the father of is. Whatever. We're here every week giving our take on life, culture, having interesting guests like the guest we'll have tonight.
Yeah.
Dr. Mike Simpson. And he's awesome because he loves to fight with people on the internet. And those are my favorite kind of people to create. I get, the algorithm is so wise now. It delivers his content to me first. I pay more attention to his content on the internet than any. Now it's just like AI knows what I need to see to enjoy my time on the toilet. And so that's where I'm scrolling and finding all that. So, where is he? There he is.
What's
There he
up?
is. Wow.
What's up, dude?
What's up, guys?
See, look at his
Uh,
background. He's got a great background. So Joyce has been
He's a
about
professional.
wanting to kick my ass about this dull ass background. She's like, "You don't have any pictures." And look at his. Good Lord, he's got a fucking flag.
So my wife when you have all this stuff back here, they're called tchotchkes.
Oh,
Yeah, so I found out they're called tchotchkes. It's spelled with a T.
Like a Polish?
Yeah, it's like TCH. There's like 2 T's in it. Because like my wife kept using the term tchotchkes, so I like looked it up, and Google, like you were talking about how the algorithms know I'm an idiot. So I type in tchotchkes, like spelt like on Happy Days, and it's like it's tchotchkes, you idiot, and it's TCH whatever. So we have a little we used to call them knickknacks in our
Right.
generation. So now
Yeah.
they're called tchotchkes. I guess I didn't get the memo, but I guess they changed it.
Well, you, sir, are a
I like how you
tchotchke
spelled
expert.
it like it's like like Mexican food or something.
Cha 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 tchotchke.
It's good. We're gonna go on down to tchotchkes and get ourselves
Yeah,
a couple
Let's go
of
down to
vodkas.
Let's go down to tchotchkes, get some queso.
Okay, have you had tchotchkes queso? It's amazing.
To die for.
So I don't know how we ever crossed paths originally, but I'm glad that we did. I read your book, and you can talk about sort of like your pedigree, and your story is kind of in your book, Honed.
Mhm.
And I read that because I'm a dude in my 40s, and the whole concept of the book is, being at your best, peak performance in those middle ages. And there's a lot of fantastic information in there. You train jiu-jitsu. I'll never roll with you. That way I can never say I'm worse than you. You train jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, dude. I put on the gi and I show up
That's
for what it's worth.
yeah, that's Dave will tell you that I suck, but the truth is I'm way better than Dave at jiu-jitsu, despite years ahead of me in the game.
'Cause I'm a
I'm
white
pretty
belt,
much caught
Michael.
up. Yeah, I've caught up. I don't know what I think you were man, you had won purple belt worlds, I think, when I started. So I'm
Maybe.
definitely behind. Not maybe. Oh, you maybe won purple belt worlds?
It's been so long. Who cares? Who gives a shit
But-
anymore?
But see,
I do.
the world was only Western Europe at that time, though. So.
Africa was a part of like freaking Europe.
The Roman Empire only extended so far.
Right.
Hey, we
yeah,
fought the Mongols off though.
he went over cobblestone roads to compete.
Mhm.
Thank
Are you
goodness-
not entertained?
Yeah,
far
thank
off.
goodness Tiberius had laid the cobblestone.
So you train jujitsu, you got some military background, so does Dave. We just have a lot in common, and you were a voice of great reason to me during like the COVID insanity. And you still to this day, even on some of these popular medical issues with what is his name, Damar Hamlin,
Yeah,
right? He died on the field, and you called the diagnosis basically that night. I think it was like, yeah, it could probably be
Yeah.
this, and then it
Yeah.
became like, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's this, and then
Yeah.
everybody else is like, no, he got the vaccine.
Yeah.
and
Well,
it was just
so
crazy.
the funny, I know we're going to talk about other stuff, but the funniest thing about that is I called it that night, and so did one of the big COVID conspiracy theorists. And I get I get McCullough and Malone confused all the time. They don't look anything alike, but they're both fucking narcissistic shills. Whichever one's the cardiologist, he called it too. He said, "Oh, that's commotio cordis." And then I think his agent goes, "Dude, there's no money to be made if you say that." So he went on TV the next day and he said, "Oh, it's been ruled out." And it's like, you're
By
fucking
who?
10. You're 10 states away. You've never even seen this guy. What do you mean it's been ruled out? So anyway, we can talk more about that later.
Yeah. So in all seriousness, I want to get to a point to where we can kind of talk about, I think I labeled the podcast this concept of surviving policing, which is, similar to surviving a career in the military, short or longer, surviving that and keeping your health into retirement, through retirement, because so many cops struggle with that.
Yeah,
both
military
on
too.
and off the job. You know, it's like, I think there's a lot to consider, but let's just start at the beginning as far as with you. Like, tell us your background, your story. Yeah, don't give it all away, I guess, because I want people to consider getting your book and all that stuff and get all the juicy details.
Right.
But yeah, have at it. I want let's hear more about Doc Mike.
Yeah. So appreciate it. Appreciate being here. Original. So I was born. If you look at my kind of the first years of my life, it's kind of hard to believe I am where I am now because I was born in Southern California. Spent the first 11 years of my life mostly in the Los Angeles area. Probably what saved me from a life of just being an absolute far left degenerate is middle school time frame, or actually right before that, we moved to a little town in the mountains of Southern California called Tehachapi. So I had a very kind of traditional country upbringing, you know, going out and hunting rabbits with my 22, walking through the middle of town with a 22 rifle over my shoulder, that type of thing. At 18, I graduated high school. I graduated 102 out of 122 in my graduating class.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Tight race to the top there.
Yeah. Yeah. I was within striking distance of number 101.
Everyone was, it was like all co-valedictorians, you know?
Yeah. So I graduated. I graduated with all the guys who basically were if you lined us up by average, I was with all the guys selling dime bags behind the metal shop, basically. I hadn't quite realized my potential, is what my parents would say. But 2 weeks out of high school, I shipped off to the U.S. Army, which I had signed up, end of my junior year. And I spent 4 years in the 1st Ranger Battalion as an infantryman, and thought I wanted to get out. Actually thought I was going to get out and pursue a career in law enforcement. So I ETS'd after 4 years, and I did all the paperwork, and I tried out for Savannah PD. I was going to stay in Georgia. Savannah PD had a hiring freeze at the time. And so I moved around a little bit, and the whole while I was in the National Guard, I ended up coming back in a few years later. I figured out civilian life was just not for me. I came back in. When I was in the Guard, I got to go to the Special Forces Assessment Selection and Special Forces Qualification course. So I'd already earned
that in the National Guard.
So there's at the time they had just scaled down. There were at one point there were 4 reserve component SF groups, 11th, 12th, 19th, and 20th. At the time, 11th and 12th were gone, but 19th and 20th were still around. I was in 20th group, so got to go to SF training and language training.
Dave was actually in 19 and a half, which was even more top secret.
It's super
19
secret.
Or 20, the 19.5. Yeah,
his code name was actually Agent Orange. Most people don't know that.
What if like this was the moment that Mike, after all these decades, has found out that it's total stolen valor from me? Like, he starts talking to me, and I'm like, yeah, no, I really can't talk about it. There's just, oh my God, it all comes out of this podcast.
I've seen crazier stolen valor stories. I've seen guys sell their line of bullshit. So just not to give away the store too much, but when I was in 20th group, we actually had a guy who was about to make sergeant major, and that's how we figured out his whole military career was fabricated.
Wait, he was in the military but had not been it?
So the only schools he had ever actually gone to were the Special Forces Qualification course. No, I take that back. He had been a bulldozer driver in the Marine Corps, but he came to the SF National Guard saying, I was in Force Recon in Vietnam. So I've already been to jump school. I've already been to dive school. I've already been to free fall school. I'm already a jump master. I'm already a dive master, all this other stuff. So this guy was like a god among gods, right? I mean, I looked up to the guy. So did everybody else. That's why he was about to make sergeant major. And then come to find out everything. Again, he had been a PFC in the Marine Corps, had gone to Vietnam as a bulldozer driver, but all these qualifications he claimed to have were completely bogus. So
How do you
Wow.
fabricate a DD-214 like that? though?
this
Like,
guy was a
how is that-
master of, this guy was actually a master of that. And there, it was, I'm not going to say his name because I don't want to get sued, because I know he's still alive and he's still out there. But some people were saying that they even suspected he had like an engineering certification that said like he could go as a hard hat diver and inspect like bridge pilings and stuff like that. And he would get contracts from the state of Florida. And there were even allegations that his engineering background was bullshit.
That explains some.
So the
crumbling
next time you're
infrastructure in
driving
Florida
over
bridges.
next time you're driving over a bridge in Florida, good luck to you.
Mm.
The guy that
Wow.
inspected that might have made his shit up.
Underneath it says Sergeant Major was here.
Yeah, exactly. But kind of jump back into where we were. So I went back on active duty. I went to 7th Special Forces Group, initially as an engineer. Eventually I became an SF medic and then an intelligence sergeant. Went to medical school. I actually was in the process of applying to medical school when 9/11 happened. And in 2002, I matriculated, went to med school for 4 years, did 3 years in an emergency medicine residency program, and then immediately went right back to the community. I was assigned to JSOC, to the Tier 1 Medical SMU, which at the time was known as the Joint Medical Augmentation Unit. They've since changed the name, but spent 6 years with them and did 5 deployments, basically providing direct medical support to all the cool cats that people make movies and write books about and stuff like that. So
Nice. And then
So that-
what made you get out? And then kind of what did you jump into when you came back?
yeah, so I retired in 2016 with 32 years. I probably, if op tempo was the same, I probably would have stayed in. As op tempo started to dip off, and I knew that I was gonna, I'd already planned around 2014. I'd already started kind of eyeing, okay, yeah, I'm probably gonna get out sometime within the next couple of years. And so, on the advice of some other people, I was going to stay in the unit the whole time. On the advice of some others who were smarter than me, it's one of the good things about always being the dumbest guy in the room. There's always plenty of people there to give you advice. They said, "Hey, don't do that. Make sure you get out. Give yourself enough time to get all your stuff lined up for the civilian world," which I did. Got out, did civilian practice for a while in emergency medicine through a couple of different hospital systems. I wasn't really thrilled with that. And in the interim, I ended up working in the pre-hospital supply space with a couple of different companies. I worked for a company called Sheepdog Response for a while as their medical training director. Some of your listeners might be familiar with that company. It's owned by Tim Kennedy, and they're still doing a lot of great stuff. In between time, I did a couple of seasons of a docu-reality show for the History Channel called Hunting Hitler, which is probably the only thing I really ever get recognized for. And
was Tim part of that too?
Tim was part of that. Tim was the one that recruited me for the show, actually.
Yeah.
He did all 3 seasons. I came on board in season 2, and then I also work as a tactical SWAT physician. So I do that here on both the local and state level. I've got a podcast and a website, and I sell some supplements. And as you mentioned, I wrote a book.
Beautiful. What does day-to-day life look like now for you?
Yeah, day-to-day life now, typically I get up, have something to eat, have my coffee, crank up the laptop. I usually spend the first two hours of my day kind of dedicated at the laptop doing work for the company that I work for in the pre-hospital supply space, because I kind of do the opposite of what, they tell a lot of entrepreneurs, take care of yourself first, because that company really doesn't care about you. I don't do that, because I kind of see like, hey, if I'm getting a paycheck from them, I kind of owe them the work on the front end. And, I can always work into the evening on my own business if I need to. So I always prioritize my work for them, which typically can be anything from working in the product development space to product marketing space. I work with product development. I work with regulatory. I work with marketing, social media, and I also work in training because one of the great things about the company I work for is we also make sure all of our employees are trained in how to use all of our products. So I'm pretty active in working on that. That's usually the first couple hours. About midday, I'm typically hitting the gym somewhere around 10 in the morning. Go get a strength and conditioning workout in, come back in the afternoon, respond to all, I usually launch a bunch of emails before I head out the door to the gym. So typically by the time I get back and I've had my lunch, people have responded to those emails and I manage them. And then kind of in the afternoon is the time that I set aside if I'm going to interview a podcast guest or to work on some very specific stuff for my business, Graybeard Performance. And I do that. And then two Wednesdays a month, I'm with the SWAT team for training, outside of the times that we're doing full mission profile stuff or actual, serving warrants and things of that nature. And then 2 to 3 nights a week, I'm at jiu-jitsu. So it's a pretty good life.
I like it. What's most difficult about when you're teaching people to use the products in your system when it comes to the penis pump? Is that particular?
The big thing is just getting over the fear. The biggest thing. So yeah. I suggest that people crazy glue hair to the actual aperture. and I think
aperture.
Yeah, especially with older guys, I think that helps quite a bit. You get some 70s fro action going on there, and it seems to be a little bit more appealing. But I always emphasize to people, the device is for enlargement. It's not supposed to bring you to climax.
Yes,
not supposed to.
That's little known fact. Yeah, that's a pro tip right there. We're not going to charge the audience on that one.
Just log that away for later.
Well, when it comes to sort of the overall, I guess, approach to your in law enforcement, feel like there's a lull. You get started in the career and you're all gung-ho. You're usually younger, running and gunning. You got the metabolism of a rabbit. You just kind of like do your thing. You'll hit the gym, whatever. But then at the same time, you kind of hit middle age while you're also hitting usually a season in your career.
Right.
By year 8 to 10, where it's like, I'm pretty much over this now, and so you're kind of over it, but you're there and you got to ride it out for that 20 or 25 or whatever it is. And in a lot of cases now it's 30 to 35 to even get your full retirement.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess talk to us about, and by all means, we can shade this with more questions besides just me, but talk to me about what is most important for guys to be focused on to have a balanced approach to, I work a lot. I need to take care of myself, but I've also got a family, a growing family. I got times. How do you have like this balanced approach to fitness, nutrition, supplementation, hormones, all that for the typical guy on the job?
Yeah, I think the big thing is prioritizing it, because you have to recognize all the things that you mentioned are important, right? Your vocation, obviously your wife, your children, those are, supremely important. But I think if you prioritize your health, wellness, and fitness by recognizing that there are downstream effects to being healthy, i.e., if I am healthy, I'm better at my job. I'm a better father. I'm a better lover to my wife. I'm a better husband overall. I'm a better example to everyone in my family. I'm a better example to everyone that I see at work. And because you've read my book, I talk about, if you, rather than looking at fitness, most people either look at wellness and fitness as an obligation. And you hear them say things like, I gotta work out today, or I'm supposed to go do it. And they're dreading it, right? They don't really want to do it because they see it as an obligation. And then there's other people that kind of look at it as like they're a hobbyist, like they're just kind of dabbling in it, like it's a neat little thing you do just to amuse yourself.
That's the most frustrating thing to see.
Yeah.
When I'm at the gym, you can see that it's
Oh yeah.
so
I'm just here to take.
fucking
I'm here to take
frustrating to me.
videos, or I'm here to hang
Yeah,
out.
I'm here.
Yeah.
It's God, it's so frustrating to see that. It's like you come here, it's the hardest part is getting there, right?
Yeah.
So apparently that's not the hardest part, because like you said, there's those people. It's like they get there and then all of a sudden they're just fucking like, you're going, why are you even here? Like you're dedicating time out of your life and you don't even want to be here. Like you're just walking around, weights, or like not even like necessarily just being on social media, but just like just walking around or just doing like this. I'm not talking necessarily about female, because females, I think people have different ideas of what fitness is, especially like this old school thought process of like, I just got to do a 10,000 reps of 5 pounds and, I'll get tone, that I'm not even talking about that, or the people who just do like social media stuff. But I see people go in there. It's just like they're wasting their time. Why do they even bother going to the gym? They could be they could just be getting high.
Yeah,
and just go get fucking high.
They're wasting their own time, and they're also wasting other people's time because they're in the way. Right. And I hate,
absolutely.
I don't, I am much different in the gym than I am on social media, because I'm never, and I don't have an issue with it now, because the gym that I go to, there are 2 to 3 coaches that run this gym. So they're doing nobody's going in there and winging it. Everybody's doing a workout that was given to them by their coach. So we don't have that issue. But the type of thing that you just described, that was the reason in the 90s on Fort Bragg. Fort Bragg has a gazillion gyms and all of them are awesome. But I spent my own money to get an off-post gym membership just so I wouldn't have to wade through that bullshit. Because when it's, the old saying, if something is free, it's essentially worthless. And that's how people treated the gym on Fort Bragg. You'd have, and it's always, for some reason, douchebags are always in groups of 3. You have your alpha douchebag and then your 2 beta and omega douchebags following him. And the alpha douchebag is showing him some stupid bullshit that's not even how you use that machine. Right.
Yeah. And, clearly they're going to injure themselves someday.
Yeah, yes. Exactly. But it's like, I'm going to pay for a gym membership just so I don't have to deal with that. Because it's so, or you go in there on the day that like, hey, we got off a little bit early. So I'm going to go, I'm going to go to Callahan Fieldhouse on Fort Bragg. And I go in there and the entire fucking mess kit repair unit decided to take off early that day. And they're all in there, tying up all the machines. And it was just so frustrating. But, again, you have people look at it as either an obligation or this hobbyist. And the hobbyists are the ones that they go in, they kind of mess around with a little bit. They're sore as hell for 2 days, and they stretch that into a week. So they end up going like 1 or 2 times a week. And you have to frame it. I use the term in my book. I say you need to have the mindset of a warrior athlete, that this is your lifestyle, that you get up every day and you're saying, what am I doing? What fuel am I putting in my body? And what am I doing at the gym to make myself a better warrior athlete? And once you embrace that, at least for me, it's like the barriers come down. It's like, this is just how I live, and I get so much enjoyment out of it, because I know that I leave every workout session knowing I am 1% better than I was the day before. And I'm not, I am not perfect at this by any means. I mean, that's the reason you don't see pictures of me with my shirt off on the internet. I'm not some ripped, genetically gifted, world-class competitor athlete, but I put the time in, and, I'm a firm believer in, consistency over time equals results. And so I try my damnedest to be as consistent as possible. Nutrition for me is always the hardest part. I think it is for a lot of people, because there's so much good food that's just out there. But you have to, especially as we get older.
Queso. I mean,
tchotchkes queso. Yeah.
Right.
Mike, you talked about especially as guys get older, and as we get older, the nutrition is even more important. Gone are the days when you can go out, eat a whole tub of tchotchkes queso, wash it down with a 6-pack of Coronas, and then get up at 5 o'clock the next morning and go on an 8-mile run. Those days are gone. I mean,
I think it's even more than that. So it hits you at 20, it hits you at 30, 40, 50, and I can imagine 60, that it becomes even more important because like I was at 40, I'm not there anymore, right? Like I'm not where I was. But I also have other, we start breaking down, right? There's, some people and it boggles my mind that they're 55 or 60 years old and it's like they're supreme, like specimens of health. And I'm like, how the fuck are you not broken down? It just happens, and I look at that, I'm like, man, that's just it. But like even between 40 and 50, because people are like, I rolling with these young guys, who are like 20 and 25. I'm like, well, wait till you're 30. So then it's going to start hitting it at like every 5 years. Like, so 30, it hits you, then 35, then 40. I said, but then it starts hitting you every 2 or 3 years. So like 42, 44. And then all of a sudden it hits you every year that you start realizing that you're getting older, that we are not who we were when we were 20. Matter of fact, I'm actually in better shape now than I was when I was 20. But that's only because I've made the effort. But I can only imagine if I had the kind of effort and the knowledge, the wisdom at 20 that I do now, holy crap. I mean, I would have been ridiculous, but hey, here I am now.
Yeah, no, I'm the same way. Even in my late 20s, early 30s, I had a couple of time frames where I got in pretty phenomenal shape. But I look back on how I was eating and the routine I was doing, and I actually did a lot of stuff wrong because I didn't know any better. So, I could have been, like you said, I could have been in even better shape. I turned 57 last month. And next month, May 11th, is the 1-year anniversary of my total right hip replacement. So I know a little bit about what it's like to be broken down.
It is. I know. It does suck.
But I got an artificial hip and I'm rolling, but it gives my orthopedic surgeon absolute fits that I refuse to quit jiu-jitsu. And every once in a while, I'll send him a video of me doing box jumps just to like give him a little panic, just to give him a panic attack.
Yeah, I had 2 discs replaced in my neck, and my doctor actually said, pretend like it never happened. So I was happy about that. Like he never said, well, you got to start taking it easy. I think some people at some point, they know like you're just going to be an asshole, right? Like you're just going to do your thing. But yeah, I mean, he said, well, just be like you are. And obviously my next.
And as a male escort, that really affected Dave's income.
No, it was
he was glad to hear his
issues.
neck movement was the same exact thing.
It was.
Are you sure that doctor didn't say pretend like this never happened, and then he moved to Venezuela?
Oh, yeah, that's what it was. That's
and then
right.
and he's gone. Like this guy was never even a licensed physician, so he's like, I was never here.
Sergeant Major, he's a physician too. Catch him if you can.
Same dude. It was the same dude. Now he's pretending to be a doctor.
Well, when I woke up, he had a Russian accent. I felt like I was in a Minority Report. He attached my fucking string to a sandwich in their fridge.
Took my freaking kidney.
Yeah. He said,
so good.
He said, you have a rope in your left hand that leads to the refrigerator. You have a rope in your right hand that leads to the bathroom.
That's so good.
Oh my God.
What, so prioritizing training, I think is so important, right? Like, hey, I hear this a lot from guys, because I obviously preach being on the mats and, going the extra mile to train. And a lot of times the excuse is, well, they should train me. They should be paying for me to do this. And I actually do agree. I think that that's a great thing to work toward.
I do too. I mean,
but if they don't,
if they don't,
you're choosing to be a part of a job that really does require you to, on some level, be a tactical athlete. Like that's really what you are. And where do you think that line is in terms of how, I guess you can never be too skilled, but where is the zone where, like, is it, do normal beat cops need to train to the level of special forces, or how do they have that balanced approach to fitness and nutrition where, they're still regular dudes coaching little league and hanging out with, they want to mow the lawn and have a beer too, so it's like, where what's your advice to cops to not go to extremes, but also to take their training seriously?
Yeah. Well, I mean, as somebody who's not a cop, I'm cop adjacent, I guess you would say, right? I mean, first of all, your health. I don't care who you are. Working out and being healthy and eating right. That's everybody. That's regardless. You're a school bus driver. You work in a cubicle. You need to do something, whether that's body weight exercises, eating right and body weight exercises. If you can't afford a gym membership or, really, high level nutrition or get a nutritionist. That's one thing. But as a police officer, I mean, much like being in the military, you need to hold yourself to a physical standard. You need to be able to, because I got into a conversation one time and people were trying to like box in. I actually had somebody asking me questions where they were trying to box in, like, police officers only need strength and bursts of energy, because it's not like you're going to run a marathon or something like that. And I don't know where this guy was coming from, but he was trying to box people in on, let's make it simpler for them. Like, you only need to work out this. And I'm like, well, I disagree with that, because what if you got this really vague call about somebody at a mall or in a housing project or apartment complex somewhere, and you end up parking on the side that you thought was the right side and it's not the right side, and you keep getting redirected, and you've probably been there, Mike, that you end up jogging from point A to point B, and then you find out, now I got to go to point C, now I got to go to point D. So next thing you know, you've spent 40 minutes kind of at a jog, and now the fight begins, right? So now you need strength, power, burst of energy, explosiveness, and all that stuff. So police officers really need to have very well-rounded fitness. And when it comes to jiu-jitsu, when it comes to laying your hands on people, I think it's way more important for a police officer to have that skill than a soldier or even a special forces operator, because I know SF guys who went their whole career that, they were launching bullets and throwing grenades and never going hands-on with somebody. It's like every mission they were on, it was just stacking bodies. They never went on the mission where, hey, we really need to bring this guy in for questioning because he's a low-level bomb maker. Or they never were in the situation where they came around the corner and somebody grabbed the barrel of their M4 and now they're in a scuffle fighting for it, right? So guys have gone their entire military career fortunate enough to never engage in, they might have been in combat, but never in the fisticuffs, right? Never going hands-on. Yeah. But as a police officer, your tools, the escalation of force continuum, right? Your tools and your weapon are the last resort. And anytime somebody's getting handcuffs on them, you're going to have your hands on them. And more and more and more, we're seeing the potential for that moment the guys hear that first click and they decide, maybe I'm not going peacefully after all. So I think for a police officer, it's of paramount importance. And we could do a whole 2 hours on why I think jiu-jitsu is the best for that. And I think you do too. And I base that opinion on the respect I have for guys like you and Chad Lyman and Jay Wadsworth and Jason Rebsch and other, longtime police officers who happen to be jiu-jitsu black belts and know the practicality and have tried boxing and Krav Maga and all this other stuff and have always come back to jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. What about, we've had this conversation on some level about testosterone and hormones, and we said we would kind of save it for when you were here to dive in a little bit more. What are you seeing from a medical standpoint? These statistics. I don't remember. Do you remember, Dave, what you pulled out, like how, like the amount of testosterone in the average male now compared to, the 80s or compared to even like before then, like it was rapidly declining.
40% since the 60s and 20% or 25 or whatever.
Are these stats accurate, or what are you seeing in the field? And what is is the solution? Supplementation, injecting testosterone. Yeah, sure. Okay. That's a piece of this puzzle, but what are you seeing as the problem, like causing this? And what is your take on kind of a comprehensive solution? What are the things that guys that are still working through this and burning burning their testosterone out, adrenaline dump at a time.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well,
Well,
you know, like,
but real quick,
Right.
because this is probably going to set you up for this. Knowing that, like testosterone levels, I almost feel like the acceptability of lower testosterone is changing. I could be wrong as far as that in between, right? It's like the autism spectrum now, right? Like the autism spectrum is like this big, right? Where they'll say, oh, 400 is between 400 and 800 or 900 or even 1,000, like that's normal. And I'm thinking, holy shit, like that doesn't, I think that's a really shitty way to try to classify a reasonable testosterone level. What do you think about that? As you're gonna, like you're gonna start speaking on it, but I had to mention that some people don't know what that all means as far as like where their testosterone level is, what's acceptable. Because I know a guy who had his tested at 400 and his doctor is like, well, it's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. And he's like, I know it's not perfect. Like I've had this before where I've been tested and I was at 450 and the doctor's like, you're perfectly fine. And I was like, no, I know I'm not fine. I can feel that I'm not where I was. I can feel my irritability. I don't, and again, I always kind of like preface it with this. Like I never went on testosterone for like sex, right? It was never like my drive for testosterone was because of fatigue, irritability, things of that nature that like my wife was noting. And but I do have to say it's a good side effect, and I probably should have written my wife a apology letter for all the years that I wasn't on it. But in the end, but seriously, like it was, there's certain things that drive us to want to be on. Again, that range is so big. So I'm sorry, I would leave it with you.
No, you bring up great points. And you mentioned the autism spectrum. So I think that's actually a good starting point. The reason being is, people, anti-vaxxers say this all the time. They're like, look at where the spike in autism rates were. Well, if you go back to where that spike starts, it's when we change the classification of what constitutes autism. That's why we are diagnosing it more. Because what used to just be, that guy's a goofy fuck, is now,
right?
They're on the spectrum, right? They're autistic, right? So we are, I've got a family member who is in his 70s and he has just diagnosed himself with autism, which he clearly does not have.
Is that allowable? Can you do that? I think you can.
He
right?
absolutely
you can diagnose yourself.
He absolutely does not have it, but he went to his doctor and said, hey, I was reading this magazine, blah, 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 autism. And so the doctor just nodded and put it in his permanent record. So, so it's in his permanent record now. But
are there any tax benefits to this? Because I could go to the doctor tomorrow.
Right. If there were, I'd be one of because I'm a goofy fucker. We all know that. But what has happened over time? We have generationally, we have lower testosterone levels. We have we have an epidemic of low testosterone that, as you said, so what they did is they just said, wow, everybody's testosterone is going down. Okay, well, let's change the normal range. We're going to move the normal range so that what average is now fits right in the middle of that. They didn't bother what's causing it, whatever. They're just kind of like, oh, we're just getting less testosterone, less masculine as time goes on. Within that epidemic is kind of a mini epidemic among military, soft operators, especially, also law enforcement and first responders. It's funny that we're talking about this because I have a special supplementary episode of the Mind of the Warrior podcast coming out tomorrow that is on a phenomenon that has been noted, known as operator syndrome. And one of the features or possible features of operator syndrome is low testosterone, is endocrine abnormalities. And I talk about it in depth in there. I'll talk about society first, and then I'll talk about kind of, operators and first responders. Society wise, what we're looking at is we're not getting good, clean sources of protein like we used to. All of our food is processed. That undoubtedly plays a part in it. It could also be, there's hormones in a lot of our meat now That probably plays a part in it as well. Increased screen time has been tied to it. Sedentary lifestyle, absolutely tied to it, right? Everything up to including, the BPAs that we all hear about, these terrible BPAs that are in plastic bottles, those can lower your testosterone. We're not getting enough sunlight. We're not getting enough fresh air. We're not getting enough vitamin D. All of these contribute. Now add to that, we made people absolutely terrified of cholesterol, right? We did that for a very, very, very long time.
Oh my God.
And
yeah.
Yeah. We made, and cholesterol, don't get me wrong. I'm not a cholesterol denier like a lot of these carnivore people are. I'm not one of them, but we made people way more terrified of cholesterol than they should be, which includes,
we were afraid of eggs back in the, not that long ago, technically.
That's right where I'm going with this. Well, hey, guess what you need? Guess what hormone you absolutely require you require cholesterol to make? Can anybody guess? Testosterone. Okay. Cholesterol is the backbone of a testosterone molecule. You have to have cholesterol in your system. That's why when I went on TRT, I went from pristine cholesterol numbers to my numbers going up, because now I'm not using that substrate to make my own testosterone anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I do have to watch my testosterone, because to me, it's just floating around and not really doing anything. Right. Because I'm using exogenous testosterone. So, so sedentary lifestyle, not exercising, not our food is not, for lack of a better word, pure. It's not clean food. Screen time, all this other shit that we're putting in our bodies. And then, terrifying people of foods that they actually need to have a proper hormonal axis. So all of this has happened. Now I'll talk about.
But do you think then that it's accurate to change the scale then? Because it's not like people are going back. I'm just kind of like playing devil's advocate here. I mean, at some point, almost like 90% of what you're talking about is shit that will never change. That is human beings now, humanity.
But so the average blood pressure has gone up. Are we just saying that that's a normal blood pressure now?
I'm sure they will.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure they won't. And here's why I'm sure they won't. Because there's money in putting people on blood pressure medication.
Right.
Right. There's and I'm not a big pharma conspiracy theorist, but you cannot
there is a reality.
You can't patent bioidentical hormones. So there's actually not a lot of money to be made. People are pretending like that, this whole testosterone thing is just a money-making scam. There's actually not a lot of money to be made in testosterone, because you can't patent bioidentical hormones.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
If the human body makes it, and all I'm doing is giving you something that's exactly the same as what your body would make. All right. Yeah, I can charge you for that, but I can't put a patent on that. That's why nobody owns all of these TRTs that are out there. There's not a patent on any of them.
I see.
Right. Yeah. So the drug companies that make them, I get for my patients that I prescribe, I get them from a compounding pharmacy, and they're not, they got to have a lot of customers a year in order to turn a profit, because I know exactly what their margins are on every bottle of testosterone that I get from them and then have shipped to a patient. And their margins are not high at all, at all. I mean, it's barely covering the cost of, shipping and everything else. So they have to have.
That's again why I produce my own testosterone at home.
You've always said that too,
and market that. I mean, that's what Dave has been injecting.
Yeah.
And so far,
but
no,
if you're
no crazy side effects that I'm aware of.
If you're gonna sell your own testosterone, you need to have on the label. It needs to say fresh squoze.
If you're going to sell your own testosterone, Mike, you actually have to have some. So that we'll dig deep for that.
Well, I try to keep mine low because it spikes so high so often that I'm trying to kind of like just maintain a lower floor.
Yeah.
It's funny that you say that, because I worked midnights on shift for 18 years, almost 18 years. And I went to day shift, and I was already on TRT. And I see a urologist every 6 months, and I tested. So I do a blood like a week before, so they have the results when they, whatever. And my shit was 1,500 plus, and the doc's like, yeah, that's not good. They thought it was like there was a mistake or something. Took it again, 1,500 plus. He's like, okay, dude, you got to cut this shit in half. Well, I'm doing 1 cc. I've only ever done 1 cc. I do it. I split it in 2, so I inject twice a week, and so I had to go down to half a cc, and so it finally went down. But even after 2 weeks, it was still at 1,500 plus. I'm like, good Lord, am I going to die here today? Like, what's going to happen? And then it did go down. And
I would love to die from high testosterone. That'd be epic. Put that in my obituary.
Well, it's crazy because you're thinking, what the fuck, because you don't feel any different. I didn't feel any different,
Well, I'll tell you
like,
why. Because once you get over kind of a saturation point, your receptors can't use anymore. So that, again, that's just excess shit floating around in your blood. And I don't
crazy?
I'm going to be honest with you. I don't give two shit. People I get this all the time. I get it as a social media question or as an email question, or I've had people approach me on the street and in airports and ask me this, like, hey doc, my testosterone is 400. I'm 42 years old. What do you think? And I'm like, okay, well, I think 3 things. First, I'm not giving you medical advice because you're not my patient. Second, the actual number means nothing to me. And I'll tell you why, because different labs use different assays. So like for one lab, the range might be 250 to 600. For another lab, the range might be 300 to 700. And for another lab, the range might be 150 to 500. So I don't know.
Are they still doing the same test though? Or just classifying it how they
depends.
want?
Not all of them are the same test. And also, when we talk about that number, whenever I hear a 3-digit number, I know they're talking about their total testosterone. I don't give 2 shits about your total testosterone. I only care about your free testosterone.
Right.
Okay. Because your free testosterone tells me if you're able to use it, if you have enough to be used. So if your free is low, that means you're burning up all that you can, and your receptors are still craving more. Right.
Yeah. When I got tested, I had to have I think that they had, for my age, whatever that the range was, it was like, let's say 500 to 800 was considered the normal range for my age. I was at like 670, something like that. So they're like, okay, you're good there. But my free was like 1 or 2 or something like out of 8, right? The normal would be like 8.
Yeah.
So, but they're like, okay. I said, what does that mean? They said, basically, like, you've got $1 million in your bank account, but you're walking around with a $5 bill in your pocket. And so it doesn't matter if you want to buy the plane, you can't, because like you've only got $5 cash. I'm like, all right, that makes sense.
That's a great way to, that's a great way to word it. Yeah.
Yeah.
What they did for me was I cannot remember what the medication was, but they put me on this medication for, man, I think it was like a 10-week run or something like that. And what they said was like the sex hormone binding globulin was ridiculously high. So they put me on something like that to knock that out and open up the receptors again. And then when I redid my blood work, everything had returned to like almost like a much more normal level. My overall testosterone was still like pretty much the same, but my free had gone up, and I definitely was like feeling way more normal. Like I was having, like, before, like, just more mood swings, and recovery was worse. Last year, maybe like, like early.
Do you have to
late
get
spring.
it checked again? Like, are you doing it every 6 months?
No, I am getting.
If it happened, it might happen again.
I'm due to check blood work again, but they told me, and again, we're not trying to give anybody medical advice or anything like that, but I'm just saying, like, the way that it was explained to me from the doctor was that once that's done, once that round is done, I should be good. Like it kind of fixed the problem, at least temporarily. So I don't have to like stay on a medication, because whatever it did, it opened it up so that it worked right again.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah. my mentor on kind of all of this, because I did go to a training course before I would even prescribe anybody, even though I had learned a lot on my own. I went to a training course before I was willing to take on a patient that specifically I was taking him on for TRT. But my mentor in this is my good friend, Dr. Drew Wingy, who I went through residency with. He's a jiu-jitsu black belt, so he's legit. And he's been doing age management, testosterone replacement, hormone replacement for a while. So when I have weird wazoo questions about things like sex hormone, binding globulin, stuff like that, he's always the person that I talk to. In fact, if you go to my YouTube channel, he and I just recently did an hour sit down, basically talking about all this stuff, about free testosterone versus total testosterone, about what it means when you take that step to be on testosterone. But something I want to touch on, because I think it's important. And you brought up, that you were working all these weird shifts. And that's, if you listen to the podcast that's coming out tomorrow, I talk about reverse cycle, sleep deprivation, all these things that raise your cortisol levels and screw you up. These are all things that really screw up your hormone axis really bad. And
I had no idea. It was,
most guys, that's why we see a really high prevalence of people needing to be on TRT in the operator community and the law enforcement and first responder community. And I attribute that to a couple of different reasons. One is all of the factors that go into operator syndrome. So poor sleep hygiene being one, long periods of time where you're kind of just burning the candle at both ends and burning out. Burning out is certainly one of them.
That is not law enforcement, though. Nobody in police work does that.
Nobody at all. There's nobody in law enforcement is ever tired ever.
And usually burnout is not an issue. It wasn't
not a factor.
Nobody I know.
Nice try, though.
Not a single. It's never happened. Not a single time ever.
This is the state of Michigan, my friend.
Yeah. Another thing is traumatic brain injury. So if you rock your melon around, all of the signals that go down and make, all of the neurochemical signals that eventually make their way to the pituitary gland. And then the pituitary gland is kind of the conductor of the orchestra, telling all of your endocrine organs to secrete what they're going to secrete and how much to secrete. And if your pituitary gland is not functioning properly, or your hypothalamic axis is off, which I talk about tomorrow, then your testosterone is going to be low. You're both.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Sure.
Because brain injuries, this is I had no idea. Are they liable to my fucking mic here? Are they liable to? With somebody with like a traumatic brain injury, you said that it's going to affect their testosterone. Now, it can. Well, we'll say in this case, some case it does. This one case, A.
Okay. Case A.
Are they liable to do TRT for somebody with brain injury, or is there other concerns where they're like, well, maybe we should not do that? Is there always other concerns, or is it like, no, dude, this is one of the first things we do. We try to get them back up to their normal levels, and
Well, and here's what great question. So, body health is brain health. So, when people ask me, what can I do to have a healthier brain? I've got Alzheimer's runs in my family, or Parkinson runs in my family. What can I do for brain health? Basically, anything you can do for physical health equates to brain health. Your brain is an organ, right? So, eating right, plenty of water. Your brain is really very, very susceptible to sleep deprivation and being off a sleep cycle. Your brain is very susceptible to altitude. If you're not conditioned to be at altitude, your brain, that's why guys that get TBI at altitude have much, much worse symptoms, right? Because you're kind of already, your brain is kind of already in a state of hypoxia, not getting enough oxygen. And which means with your nervous system, when it's not getting what it wants, your nervous system is a little bit like a toddler. When it doesn't get what it wants, it throws a tantrum, and everybody's had kids knows, right? Your kid's in the high chair, and you put the food in front of them, and it's all over their fucking face, and then they throw the goddamn thing, and it's all over the kitchen floor, right?
Right.
That's what brain cells do when they're not getting what they need, right? They produce all these toxins, and that happens all day long. Like right now, while we're talking, our nervous system is producing these toxins and they're hanging out in our central nervous system. Then at night, when we go to sleep, they all get filtered out. So what happens if you don't get enough sleep? All those toxins are still there. What happens if my toddler throws a handful of spinach on the carpet and I leave it there for 48 hours? I don't pick it up. I got a big green stain on the carpet, right? Well, so imagine that big green stain on one of your brain cells in the form of what we call a plaque. That's where dementia comes from, right? If you're not getting proper sleep, you're not flushing out these toxins, you're building up these plaques in your brain. And the next thing you know, you're walking around telling stories. And then my dad said, "Hey, Joey," shit like that.
I see what you did there.
Wait, see what I did there?
That's oddly specific.
You're walking around calling people, lion, dog, pace, pony soldiers and shit like that. And that's not a good look, not for anybody.
Oh,
there's a lot of plaque at the top level of politics.
So just in the interest of equal time, I just want to throw in a joke coming from the other side. I want to say that Mike's testosterone are so awesome. It's like Trump NFTs.
Get them while you can.
Equal time.
Yeah. I also do that on the side with my testosterone is I donate it to Dave and I also make NFTs out of it. So gives you private access to my community.
Mixed with resin. So gross.
Oh, I put that in epoxy on end tables. Yeah. It's
oh, so dumb. Golly.
So okay. With the testosterone issue, obviously it is a prevalent thing. Mm-hmm. We've talked about cholesterol. We've talked about a little bit of the idea that other factors in our endocrine system are going to kind of lead to possible issues with testosterone. What about what role does adrenaline play in that picture? Because obviously, is that a factor for operators or law enforcement with like the constant adrenaline dumps that happen over time, or no?
If you're getting them all the time, it's not the adrenaline. And I have a little bit of resistance. There's a diagnosis that's out there that's a little bit of what we call a trash can diagnosis called adrenal fatigue. And it doesn't really mean anything, right? And it's kind of a diagnosis of exclusion. So a diagnosis of exclusion in medicine means, all right, we've looked for all these other things and we couldn't find it. We don't have a test for this other thing, but because we eliminated everybody else, we're falling back on the diagnosis of exclusion. But unfortunately, in modern medicine, a diagnosis of exclusion means I'm just so fucking tired of hearing your shit. Here's a diagnosis. Get the fuck out of my office. Right.
Nice.
So, and that's why fibromyalgia is really, really, really overdiagnosed. Right. It is a real thing, but
any inexplicable pain.
Yeah, it's like, ow, oh, you got fibromyalgia. Get out of my office, right? It's because I don't want to hear your shit anymore. Which it's a real diagnosis, and people really, really have it. But again, it's a diagnosis of exclusion, and it's a little bit of a trash can diagnosis, and it's a little bit of a dangerous diagnosis too, because there are people that have had legitimate stuff that could have been treated up to and including types of cancer that were diagnosed with fibromyalgia or chronic Lyme. Some of these other kind of catch-all trash can diagnoses of exclusion, and adrenal fatigue is kind of in that category. What can happen if you're constantly going through this state of kind of hyperexcitability, you can get over time. What happens is because adrenaline is kind of your short burst stress hormone, right? And adrenaline, is very helpful, right? It speeds up your heart rate. It's the hairs on your arms and the back of your neck stand up. You're more aware of your surroundings. Your pupils dilate. You're taking in more light. Your peripheral vision widens. Time seems to slow down a little bit, right? Because you're kind of hyper excitable. These are,
Sounds
and it also
like every
helps,
time I go to Mike's house.
yeah, it also helps you mobilize glycogen, right? Which is how you store your sugars in your muscles and in your liver. And that becomes fuel. That becomes readily available fuel, right? So these are all great things. But if that's happening all the time, then your body starts to go, well, goddamn, you're getting attacked by bears like every fucking 15 minutes. We are not, this is not a good way to live. We're going to go ahead and elevate your cortisol.
Okay.
Right. And we're just going to keep your cortisol chronically elevated. And so elevated cortisol, that means you're in basically survival mode. So if you go all the way back to our ancestors,
You can't sleep
right?
very well on high levels of cortisol, right?
No, you cannot. And then not sleeping then makes them even higher. Right. So do you guys remember a movie from the 1980s called The Clan of the Cave Bear? You guys remember that movie?
No, but I'm intrigued by this title.
It's a good movie, actually. So imagine it's a prehistoric Daryl Hannah movie. What's not to love, right?
Ooh,
So, yeah. Everybody needs to see Clan of the Cave Bear. It's actually a really good movie. So, but there's a scene in that. It's these Neanderthals, and there's this one point where basically there's like an earthquake or something, and they lose their home. So they're in survival mode. They're basically wandering from place to place, trying to find another place that they can live and live safely. So you look at that, and I always reflect on that. That's like the best example of a time when everybody's cortisol levels would be high, right? You don't know where your next meal's coming from. You're being chased by saber-toothed tigers and bears. You're not sleeping right. There it is. Yeah,
Amazing.
that's it. That's Clan of the Cave Bear right there.
Hello.
So but what does that mean? So if you're in survival mode, is your body going to say, hey, you know what? We might be dead tomorrow. Now's a really good time to bring a fucking baby into the world. No. So that means your sex drive goes down because your testosterone is going down, right?
Yeah.
Women with chronically elevated cortisol tend to not ovulate, right? So, and it also, that's what else does cortisol do? Shit, I don't know where my next meal's coming from. I better store as much as I can as fat in case I need to use it later, right? So that's, your cortisol's up, you're not sleeping, you have no sex drive, your testosterone's in the toilet, you're putting on body fat because we don't know. We might be dead tomorrow. Well, we're doing a lot of things in modern society, and shift work being one of them, and reverse cycle being one of them, that cause people to have chronically elevated cortisol. There's people that have chronically elevated cortisol probably because they spend too much time fucking reading Don Lemon's tweets on fucking Twitter, because there's so, poor guy is so fucking stressed out, how he's going to pay for his $6 million house. I have no idea. And I'm really worried about the guy.
Well, do you think, so it basically, it's like an instinct drug. Like the cortisol is like an instinct drug. Like that's when we talk about instincts, and survivability, we should be talking about cortisol. But is there ever a time where your body is so used to high cortisol levels that it changes kind of how the body takes it in or understands it? So like it goes, all right, motherfucker, you've been here for 18 years. Let's raise let's raise it up even higher, because obviously your survivability, you survived this long. We'll just say, we'll go back to the caveman times, right? You've been alive for 15 years. You're 15-year-old. Nobody lives this long. Does cortisol ever keep going up? And is there ever an acceptable level, like where, you know what I'm saying? Like, does it ever adjust with your body?
I'm not an endocrinologist, and I don't know.
Interesting.
I wish I had an answer to that. I feel really stupid that I don't.
Oh,
let's get Fauci on here.
Yeah. Fauci, he's a fucking genius. Speaking of narcissists, a chronically elevated cortisol, basically it shuts off a lot of shit that's really important. It wreaks havoc, and it's one of those cyclical things that it then, everything that's going bad is what makes your cortisol go higher, and then having high cortisol makes your life even worse.
Right.
So it's this terrible cyclical thing, and then that's why it's really hard to kind of bring people out of that on the back end. And I would guess that I think, Mike, probably elevated cortisol, I'm pretty sure, goes hand in hand with elevated sex hormone binding globulin. So, you had probably been on the tail end of some elevated cortisol issues, and your sex hormone binding globulin was still elevated, and it just had never gone back down to normal levels.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, when it
Hmm.
comes to supplementation, right now,
Mhm.
so I would say if you're going to survive like this career,
Mhm.
be aware that okay, we've kind of let me piece this together, walk this through. Okay, one, take care of yourself, right?
Mhm.
Because the best version of you in every area of life starts at a foundational level with your fitness overall,
Mhm.
right? So like you are a better cop, better husband, better father, better community member, uh, all that stuff because you take care of yourself physically, nutritionally, all that stuff. Now, the the nature of shift work or other uncontrollable factors as part of the job is going to kind of wreak havoc on you. So get your blood work done,
Mhm.
get it checked out, make sure that you're getting what you need to keep as balanced as possible. When it comes to supplementation, there's so there's probably no other aspect of fitness and nutrition that I am more lost in.
Mhm.
And I think so many people are lost because everybody's like, I'll just pop these multivitamins here. I'll get me some vitamin D over here. Man, I better get my melatonin. I better get my whatever. And they're just like got like this junk drawer of supplements.
Mhm.
What do we really need to be supplementing and why? You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Like what is the right way? What's the right way, I guess, to think about supplementation? How do you
Mhm.
even approach it? Because it's like I
Mhm.
feel like it's a daunting task to even know where do I begin with. And I know
Yeah.
that you talk in the book a little bit about some kind of key things to think about, but I don't know. What are some principles to use here?
It's challenging because it it's that's such a it's the whole supplement and vitamin thing is so layered and it's mired in all of these like dead ends, and it's difficult to navigate. It's not only is it difficult, I know how difficult it is to navigate as a physician. For the layperson, it's got to be incredibly difficult to navigate. And the reason being is I've had my wife come to me, hey, she's reading a book on brain health or something like that, and she's like, hey, a doctor wrote this or a nutritionist wrote this, and they're saying that that everybody should be taking this many IUs of this. And then I go look it up and I'm like, no, there's not real good data on that. And it's like, oh, they're putting this on there was a 12 patient study in Rangoon in 1978. They're fucking putting it on that. There's so much. You guys saw how much misinformation and disinformation there was during COVID, right?
Yeah.
So my favorite example is when people said, oh man, they're taking hydroxychloroquine in India and they went a month without anybody dying from COVID. Well, not only did they go a month with nobody dying from COVID, but if you track their death tracker in India, they went a whole month that nobody in the entire country died. Not a single person died for
Amazing.
a whole month. Do you know why that is? The guy who was responsible for inputting the data in their national database died of fucking COVID.
I was going to say they just didn't report it. I mean, that's how
Yeah.
it goes, right?
Yeah.
We've talked about that.
That's
Yeah.
wild.
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, nobody
It's
died of COVID.
insane.
Also, nobody died of motor vehicle accidents, heart attack, stroke, anything for that whole month. My God, hydroxychloroquine cures everything, right? So
That's amazing.
but there's so much garbage data out there. So when it comes to supplements, there's just so much garbage out there. And that's, I've taken the time myself, and I readily admit, I don't know every supplement out there that works. I know the things that I identified that I kind of needed. And then I went into PubMed and I started looking at studies. I looked at the studies on turmeric. I looked at the studies on L-citrulline. I looked at the studies on beta-alanine. I looked at the studies on melatonin, on valerian root, on THC and CBD. I've looked at the studies on all this stuff, and that's how, I do have my own line of supplements, full disclosure. And that's how I kind of come to that conclusion is I look at there has to be clinical evidence, right? There has to be proof that, it did this, it reduced inflammation, it elevated quality of life. Subjects showed better cognition. Subjects showed better VO2 max, better athletic performance. Subjects reported better erectile function after they were taking, whatever. And I study all of this because I think it's important, but I get it that the layperson doesn't have time for that. And I get this comment quite a bit. People look at my supplements, which I have on the shelf behind me here, and
Tchotchkes.
they go, my tchotchkes, and they go, there's not a lot in these. And I go, yeah, that's because I only put in shit that works. Like, there's other people out there that'll sell, and they'll a laundry list of bullshit that whatever is fucking flavor of the week, they'll put that in their supplements. And it's like, not even if it does work, probably not everybody needs it. And, there's a few, like, not everybody necessarily needs iron supplementation. A lot of people do, but not everybody needs iron supplementation. Right. And there's a lot of stuff that's out there like that not everybody needs it. Not everybody needs it in the amounts that they're claiming that people need it. So it's really hard to cut through that. And there's a lot of physicians out there that'll put their name on shit and sell it to turn a profit without really doing their due diligence on that research. And it's the medical community about every 10 years comes out with another paper that says, well, really, you don't need them at all. Like, we've studied this and you really don't need but the caveats on that are, A, if you're an average person, and I don't market to average people, I market to warrior athletes. And B, that's if you are eating a really good diet, which nobody's really eaten in the United States in quite some time, right? So nobody's getting enough, lean, green leafy vegetables. Nobody's getting enough good lean protein and meats. They're eating crap. So for that reason, I do think supplementation is important. And I gear all of my stuff. I don't market one pill and say, hey, just take this and you're going to live to be 100 years old. I've got something for inflammation and healing. I've got something to help people sleep. I've got something that increases your athletic performance and according to clinical trials, your sexual performance as well. I've got something that'll naturally boost your energy through yerba mate, a natural source of caffeine, and B vitamins and branched chain aminos. These are the things that I concentrate on so that you can. I don't like this one size fits all. I'm going to take a Centrum every day, not to throw Centrum under the bus because I took them for a long time and they're a good vitamin. But, I feel like if you say, well, my only issue is sleep, or my only issue is I'm too tired to work out, then I want you to have something that specifically is tailored for that.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right. So listen to the doc, everybody. If you're a cop, make sure that you're taking care of yourself. Make sure you get your blood work checked. Make sure that you're consulting someone that's not an idiot and just giving you an autism diagnosis because you're weird, check things out.
It's weird to me. Okay. So I wrote down a few things that, because I really feel like we literally are just scratching the surface.
Oh, there's no doubt about it.
I mean, this is ridiculous. Like, I feel dumb because, like, I feel like we haven't even really scratched the surface. And so hopefully this is a good taste for you. I'd love to have you back on. Like, I found myself just sitting here, like, in somewhat of an amazement because I'm just so fascinated by health. You know what I mean? As far as even though I may not practice perfect health, I'm still fascinated by it, especially the older I get. But a couple of things that I was looking at is, first of all, wives, right? Like, if it wasn't for my wife, and I guarantee it's the same with you and Sherry and you and your wife, that if we didn't have the wives that we did, we wouldn't be the people who we are. And not just like, oh, because 100%. We love each other. We're talking about, like,
I'd be superior. I'd be a superior person.
That's true. But my wife knows how important health is to me. She knows that I need to go to jiu-jitsu. She knows I need to work out. And because those are huge sacrifices, but that's without an understanding family, you'll never be there. So I guess long story short, dump your significant other if they're not letting you go to the gym. That's it, plain and simple. There is no other options.
Fucking preach. Amen. That's it's, and I've been in toxic relationships like that where they bitch about my personal development.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And another thing is, I am at the age, and I wish I was younger, where I have no problem talking about my poop schedule, my testosterone levels, the things that I do to keep myself sane, healthy, things of that nature. I urge young out there,
man.
military, talk more, speak more.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of guys get embarrassed to talk about health, I guess, issues. And sure, privacy can be a concern on some level. I mean, you got to have some level of trust that people aren't just running around talking shit behind your back or whatever. But I mean, who cares? Whatever, I don't care about that stuff. Is Dave the only one frozen? Is my question.
Am I back or no?
Dead.
I can see you moving. Oh, now
Okay.
Dave's moving again. So
Okay,
Yeah.
am I back now? Because I don't know
Well,
what the fuck happened.
I would just
Clearly, the
stop
government's
talking.
trying to restrict me. Can you hear me?
Not
now?
really. Yeah, the government is not happy with your message. So I can't mute Dave. I don't know why. How come I don't have that kind of control, Elijah?
Oh,
It won't let.
he's
It wouldn't
booted
let
him
me
out
either.
completely.
I
We'll
just
just
kicked
kick
him
him
out.
It's
Sorry.
yeah, that's fine. So one of the things I think that there's definitely like tons of follow-up opportunity, I think, on the health and fitness discussion side. I commend everyone that's watching this to grab a copy of the Honed book and a lot of the things that we're talking about. Dude, it's like it's very much, and this is a compliment, not a knock. It's Big Bird and Cookie Monster style, man. It's not complex reading. It's not like you don't feel like you're reading a study or something. Like it really is personal and an effective, efficient read that I think if you implement those things will be better for it.
Yeah.
Now,
Well, I appreciate that because that's exactly how I intended it when I wrote it.
that's good, man. And it
Am I
is
back
an
here?
awesome read.
Or-
You're back.
You're back.
okay,
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, what the fuck? This is bullshit. The government, man.
I've got a solution after. I'll tell you.
Oh, I bet you do. But well, okay, so let me just say this quick before I get booted by the government again. That I wish that I had started talking about my health when I was younger. So like I can talk about anything now, but back then now I look back going, man, I wish I would have taken my health more serious, but I wish I would have been able to be more open. If you imagine being 20 or 30 years old and admitting that you are on testosterone, you'd never have done that, right? That's just not a thing. But and that's why I do encourage that. But the last thing is, I saw a lot of people in the comments that get TRT, and the thing is, when you get your blood test, because if you're going with a urologist or whatever, a medical professional, learn and read the blood work, learn how to do it, because and you're new to this, but I've been talking to these guys about some of the medical issues that I've been having. Had I known that my hemoglobin was so high, like my hemoglobin a few weeks ago came out at 19.8. Okay. And so
you need to give some blood.
Obviously that's concerning, right?
Yeah.
So they said stop testosterone and stop creatine because my kidney levels were off the chart too. They're ridiculous.
Yeah. So the creatine, they're wrong.
Well, they did it. They wanted me to do it because they knew that they were going to get a more accurate reading. They know it doesn't affect my kidney levels, but it fucks the test up. And did. Yeah. And now I did it and it was perfectly normal. Do
what they told you to do, but I don't agree with them. But I want you to do what they told you to do. Yeah. Yeah. But
the testosterone, they said, because my testosterone was 1,000. And they're like, he said, stop doing the testosterone. Let's see if it brings your hemoglobin down. So I did it another, just for the people listening, because they've been listening to me. It's at 19 now. So it did go down, but it's been a little over 2 weeks, and that's about as much as it's going to drop. So it's still at 19. So I did a double red blood cell donation on Sunday. Good. Hopefully that helps. But now my problem is that when I had blood tests done, I never read the results. So back in September, my hemoglobin was at a 19. My urologist never saw it, never cared, never did anything to. And then 6 months before that, it was at a 17. So there was already a rise happening. He never saw it. So learn to read those things yourself, and don't just assume, oh, well, the doctor knows best and this, that, and I'm not saying he's a quack. He's not. Actually, he's pretty well respected. And I'm not going to be the guy who goes, he's the best in the country. That's, everyone always has that doctor, right? But that's not the case. But learn how the tests are. It's like, because they always kind of like shorten, to TRT or whatever I forgot what hemoglobin is. It doesn't matter, but learn what it is. Cause had I caught it faster, I don't know. Cause I don't know what the fuck's happening with me. But at least we would have known 6 months ago that there was a fucking problem. And it wasn't until, you know what I mean? It's been a month and a half where I can't fucking breathe. And my blood pressure is at 145 over 105. You know what I mean? Like, so do your own research also. Like you were saying, like you do your own research.
Are you on CPAP?
Oh, no. I've never had.
Have you had a sleep study?
No.
Yeah. So you absolutely need to have a sleep study.
I'll come over.
And here's why. So you have polycythemia, right? So you have technically it's not polycythemia because it's just probably your hemoglobin and your hematocrit, but you have elevated hemoglobin, elevated red blood cell count, right?
Yeah.
And you have elevated blood pressure. So those two together are very indicative of somebody who has sleep apnea. Now, here's the thing is if I have somebody who comes to me as a potential patient and those numbers are elevated, their blood pressure and their hemoglobin and hematocrit, I won't put them on TRT until they have had a sleep study and until they are on CPAP.
So even if I don't even snore, is that still indicative of apnea? Because I don't even snore.
Yeah. So snoring is a big indicator, but there's I'll send it to you. I'll send it to Mike. I'll send a link. There's a questionnaire that you can do that basically is a sleep apnea questionnaire, and it's self-scoring, so you can see how it is. But anybody over the age of 40 with high blood pressure, I am already pulling the trigger on a sleep study.
See, it's so weird. Why would it just comes from nowhere?
Yeah,
it was literally a month and a half ago. I didn't have high blood pressure. And then all of a sudden,
well, see, and that's concerning because you're getting it now. Have you? I don't want to get too far into this, and I don't want to. Yeah, and you're not my patient, but I would just from what you're telling me as a friend, I'm recommending that I would be talking to your primary care physician about getting a sleep study. It just and if it's negative, it's negative. It was a negative sleep study. You log that away. You never have to worry about it again. But I think if you were my patient, I'd be signing you up for a sleep study right now.
Interesting.
I do.
Go ahead.
I wanted to touch on. You talked about how when we're younger, we don't think about this and we don't talk about it. And a phrase that I use in my book, I talk about people need to take ownership of their own healthcare. And that's the real health crisis in America, right? Yeah. It's not who's uninsured. It's not this other stuff. It's people don't give a shit. So I can't tell you how many times I've gone into a patient's room and I'm talking to them and I say, what medications are you on? And they literally hand me a fucking Walmart bag full of bottles.
Nice.
And it's like, no, I'm asking you, what medications are you on? Well, they're in the bag. Well, you don't have it memorized. No. You don't have it written down anywhere. No. Okay. I go through the bag. What are you on this for? I don't know. What are you on this for? I don't know.
Yeah.
These are essentially the same drug. Why are you on both of them? I don't know.
That's nuts.
Yeah, and because they don't take ownership, and that's way too much blind trust in the medical establishment, in my opinion. Right? Is you need to be aware of what you're on, why you're on it, and were there any alternatives? Was there a lifestyle alternative that could have prevented me from being on that? And the problem is when we're young and we're healthy and we can get away with all this shit, right? You can eat a fucking bowl of chili and take a nap and then get up and go for an 8-mile run. You're essentially, your body is like a credit card and you're racking up debt. And then you hit 40 and the bill collector comes and says, here's your high blood pressure, and here's your bad knees, and here's your blown out discs in your back, and your liver and your kidneys aren't doing so good, and you've got cholesterol plaques in your arteries because you've been living crazy, but you didn't feel it. You could still run, you're staying out all night and drinking and smoking and doing all this other stuff. And you had a young, resilient body with, and there are these things you have on your DNA strands called telomeres that basically dictate what your cellular life is. You had telomeres that were this fucking long. Now you got telomeres that are this long. You can't do that anymore, right? Because you don't have as much.
Seems like an average telomere. I have average telomere size.
My telomere. I'm working on my telomeres. I'm trying to bulk up my telomeres for the summer. I'm trying to get
summer telomere life.
Trying to get my telomeres in swimsuit shape. Right? But you really are. You're living on a credit card all this time, and then the bill comes due. Right? If I would have known about health, like you said, if I would have known what I know about health when I was 18 years old, I would be so much better off now. I would be in such better. Not only would I have been in better shape then, but I would be in so much better shape now. And again, this is what we're not doing as a society, because everybody's on cruise control. Doctors are handing out pills like candy. Nobody wants to own their own health care. You need to own your own health care. Okay. I guarantee, the doctor that told you how fucked up you are is probably not going to cry at your funeral. All right. Your family members are going to cry at your funeral, and you're going to be dead. So you're not going to be upset, but by God, you would have been. So you need to take that seriously. Nobody cares as much about your health as you do. Yeah. So you're responsible for it.
So clear after seeing the looking back at the charts of the blood tests, like I said, September, and then 6 months before that, and seeing these numbers, this hemoglobin, and it was like, wait, how the fuck did he miss it? Like, why did he even take blood if he didn't give a shit? So I'm like, apparently I have to do it,
Yeah.
I know it's a late lesson, but
Yeah. Depending on how many patients he has, I mean, it's it's challenging, right? And he might have, in the heat of the moment, scrolling through stuff, right? Because an abnormal lab, typically, if I'm looking at it on my screen, right, it shows up, there'll be like a red flag there that it's abnormal.
Right.
And it was abnormal last time at 17, and he was scrolling through in a hurry. He saw the same red flag, and glancing at 19, he thought it still said 17. I mean, that's very possible. I've been steadily rocking the 17 for a few years. So I'm not in the range where I need to give blood. But if I go up, and I have two doctors watching it, because I have my age management doctor who I get labs through, and then I have my primary care doctor at the VA. And I like that's what, and I don't, I see people for hormone replacement, age management, and I tell them, I'm not your primary care doctor. So I still want you to have a primary care doctor. And I kind of feel like that we check each other's work when it comes to that, right? Because if my patients do go see their primary, I want to know what they did. I want to know what they talked about. I want them to send me those results so I can put them in the records that I keep. And I tell them, I want you to have access to all of the things that I'm doing for you. Same way, because it shouldn't be a secret, when you go in there, and your labs are a great example. Like if I put somebody on testosterone and their hemoglobin and hematocrit goes up a little bit, and they don't tell their doctor they're seeing me and that I have them on TRT, and they're going, God damn, what is up? What's going on with these labs? So you need to be completely above board with that. And I'm a firm believer in separate, I see specialists for specialty things. My PCM doesn't do the steroid injection in my thumb. My orthopedist does that. I don't get my TRT or have my man labs typically done by my PCM. My age management doctor does that. So, and
my doctor that helps me in my transition is the guy that I go to when I need to understand how the impact of my bottom surgery is going to impact my life.
Your bottom surgery.
That's
so
what they
weird.
call it. I think.
I wanted to chime in and say one thing, and
Oh wow! Look at you.
I needed to. And my camera's probably not working very well, but I'm only 24, and when I was,
I have socks your age.
And when I was 20,
peak male performance.
So when I was
you
20,
might not like it, but that's what it looks like.
Yeah. When I was 20, I got diagnosed with a chronic illness, like an autoimmune disorder, and kind of like Crohn's. And basically, I just took all the medications that the doctors gave me, just kind of ignored it, went in and did the blood work that I could afford, paid $600 a month, I think, for medicine for 2 years. And then I went on a diet. I started taking care of myself. And this summer, or in September, I had one of the worst flares ever. And I think I was 1 gram per deciliter? Is that how you measure hemoglobin? Away from needing a transfusion because I had such low hemoglobin. Wow. And I had lost in 2.5 weeks, I think, 40 pounds. And so I was like super just winded, weak. I lost all my muscle mass. Like in 2 weeks, it was just gone. But
dude, that's how I am. I'm so tired.
It's crazy.
Ridiculous.
I couldn't do anything. I could barely get off the couch.
You're so tired now, Dave.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah,
it's all the time.
That's symptom number 3 that you need.
It's not, but it's as I said, I'm not disputing that at all. I'm just saying this stuff came on so quickly. I'm
going to leave now, and I should be there by 10:30 with a notepad. To watch you sleep.
It doesn't matter how much I sleep or not sleep. It's been really rough. It's
so lethargic. and I'll tell you why, because you're not getting. It's not just quantity; it's quality. So it sounds to me like you're not getting quality, dude. This is textbook, man. This is totally. Hold on a second here. I'm gonna find. Where is it? Talk amongst yourselves, because I've got this. I've got this question.
What happened was, after that happened, I was like, okay, I'm actually going to figure out how to figure it out, because I had just been ignoring it for so long, and now I'm in, I guess, what you could call clinical remission from my major symptoms, and I'm not dying. I was on steroids for a little bit, but I'm off those now. But I found medication that works. I don't feel like I'm dead all the time or sick all the time. All of my test results are completely normal. And all it was just a change in medication. And it's crazy. That's all it was. I was taking all these wrong medications. And when I finally sat down and talked to my specialist, he was like, oh, you're getting all these symptoms because you've been taking these for so long. He's like, you haven't come in for he's like, I haven't been able to get your blood work. And so I got it all done, readjusted the medications, totally fine now. It's crazy. And I'm like, I feel normal for the first time since I was 20, 21. Good. It's nuts. Yeah. Absolutely crazy.
Can I share my screen?
I don't know.
You do whatever you want.
Right. You should. Do I have the capability to do that? Oh, here we go. Present. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, it should let you do a share screen thing.
Right, here we go. All right, so this is what I'm talking about here. This is the Berlin questionnaire for sleep apnea. And if you Google that, you can find it, and there's a bunch of them where you can just do it yourself and it'll score it for you, right? So this is these are the questions that you need to be asking yourself when it comes to sleep apnea, right? And snoring is on there, right? It's a pretty big part of it, but it's not all of it, right? So a lot of this is symptomatic, right? Do you ever feel tired or fatigued after you sleep? Tired during the day? Have you ever nodded off during the day? How often does this occur? Do you have high blood pressure? Yes or no? And then you score this, right? So just doing kind of a shotgun swag on, the fact that you have 3 symptoms, you're on TRT. It was fairly rapid onset. Did this happen to a company? I'm gonna ask you one more question. And again, I'm not your doctor, but did this happen to a company, a recent weight gain, whether that was fat or muscle? Doesn't matter.
No.
Didn't? Okay.
No.
Still, yeah, the prudent thing to do is for you to, as a minimum, when we're done here, if I were you, I would Google the Berlin
Yeah, I'm totally gonna
Berlin
take that
questionnaire,
test.
do that, and then based on that, even if you have an equivocal score, I would refer you for a sleep study.
Sounds good.
I want to
We
address
just
this
saved Dave's
comment
life.
before we end the show. Glitter Fart is telling me that
Yeah, unless you have
Listen.
cancer, you shouldn't be taking meds at all. Okay, all right.
cut sugar
don't ever.
and junk food. I
yeah.
want you to know,
Well, I've had
Glitter Fart,
cancer 4 times and beat
Yeah.
it all with
I did
no
this for
meds.
I did
Have
this
fun.
with high
Have fun
testosterone.
dying. Have fun dying of strep throat because you don't want to take penicillin.
I did a complete overhaul of my entire diet. I had no seasonings on any of my food. I owned part of a cow and did raw milk, and I went all in. I was super healthy.
How do you own part of a cow? How do you own?
It's called herd share.
It's a
Yeah,
kind of a timeshare for
you own their
bovines.
This is some fucking Gen Z shit, man.
but it's the only way you can legally get it.
So when they
in
do
Michigan.
that, you know, when they do that little diagram of, hey, this is where the ribeye comes from. Did you have like this part of the diagram is? I've got
I just had part of the milk crop, and I was on pills because I have severe inflammation that causes my colon to bleed and scar. And if I don't take those pills, then I will have to get my colon taken out. So it's between that.
That's not the bottom surgery you want.
Yeah, or an
$80,000
to $150,000 surgery. So,
but I will do it for half off. I'll make it cheaper for you.
Oh, thanks.
True.
I'll ask ChatGPT how to do it.
Oh shit! Okay, fair.
We just changed your mind, folks. This is what we're all about. All right, so dude, there was I hope you'll come back. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
I also try to recognize the fact that like, it's like kind of in a way bringing a mechanic on and then just asking him a bunch of car questions. But it's like, but I think we're asking and talking about the things that the people that are in our audience, they're thinking about. They want to know. They want to talk to somebody that they feel like they can trust and identify with. And I honestly can't think of anybody better that I know that I can trust and identify with. As far as like, you understand what they're going through, you understand a lot of their experiences and the way that they see and think about the world. And so to at least bridge a gap of trust between that is beneficial when it comes to discussing some of these important things about health and long-term, age management and stuff for cops, because I'm sick of seeing a ton of cops, make it through and then, they're dying within 5 years of retirement. They hadn't had a track record of taking care of themselves. And then I think you combine that with the loss of something that they hold near and dear or identify with. And I think it's just a recipe for disaster. And I want to see cops taking care of themselves. I want to see everybody taking care of themselves, but we have to hold ourselves to a better standard, even if our departments are not holding us to the standard. You owe it to yourself, to your families, to be at your best. And I think we at least in this conversation kind of give you some things to hold on to, some handles to grip, to say like, all right, what I do need to start taking care of myself. What would that look like? I do need to get my blood work. Let's get that done. I do need to start thinking about the future and not just the moment with what I'm doing. So I appreciate the conversation. There's a ton of, Honey Badger wants to know, would it be weird to read Hone as a woman under 40? Asking.
No, absolutely not. The title of the book is Honed: Finding Your Edge as a Man Over 40. But I've had 26-year-olds read the book and then email me talking about, hey, this is, change my approach to a lot of this. If I could put this in a time capsule and send this book back in time to my younger self, I would absolutely do that. There's a lot of really good information in here, and nothing. I have women. My supplements are specifically marketed to what I call the seasoned warrior athlete, right? Middle-aged men, but there are women taking my supplements too. There's nothing in there that's gonna, you're not gonna grow a mustache. Like that chick on that really weird Freddie Mercury commercial that disturbs me. I don't know.
Day 368 of being a boy.
God.
weird.
Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. You can read my book. There's information that's beneficial towards for you, especially that, everything I talk about in sleep applies to everybody. Everything I talk about in nutrition and working out applies to everybody. You can skip over the parts that are specific to testosterone, and stuff like that if it doesn't apply to you. But absolutely, the book and my supplements are for anybody.
Awesome. Yeah, go get it, guys. I had a bunch of screenshots of stuff from your social media that we got to talk about eventually.
If you want to do a couple of highlights, we can do that. It's I'm an awful person on social media. So I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna be totally honest with you. Sometimes I lay there at night, like right before I fall asleep, and I go, in the morning I should probably delete that tweet. I was probably a little too mean to that guy. Yeah, I'm going to delete that in the morning. And then I get up in the morning and I go, fuck that guy. And I go right back out.
Well, so here, I'll show this much. And I want you to come back for a part 2 where we can just the next one we'll call 3 washed up white guys bitch about the world. But this will give you your pronouns are F and you.
Yes. Yeah. F you.
Normalize saying this to people who annoy you. I'm going to need you to fuck off. Not partially. I'm not talking about one of these weak fuck offs where you just are out of earshot. Fuck all the way off. I want you to fuck off so far that your mail has to be forwarded. So this is my, like I told you guys, I'm not kidding. You provide my daily entertainment. Like I just look, and I especially love it when there's been stuff that I've posted on my account that there's more likes and interaction going on your comment on that, and the argument ensues there than on the actual post. I love it.
Yeah,
and
appreciate
it. You have a lot of thoughts to share on cultural, political issues. There's some things that I want to talk about, but it would take so much longer, and I want to do justice to it. So promise us you'll come back for a part 2.
Absolutely, man. I would absolutely love to. And Wednesdays are a good night for me because it's Tuesday and Thursday night I have jiu-jitsu. So Wednesday's actually a great night for me to sit down and talk to you guys.
Sweet. And we are taking applications for a 4th host who would want to pay us to be here. So if that's something that interests you, then
I'll only if you accept Trump NFTs as currency.
I do. They're going to be worth something in 2025, baby. All right, guys. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon.